was always the Jags. It's always the Jags. It's always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags, your number one podcast for all things Jacksonville, all things Jaguars, all things Duval. Usually I don't do episodes in the middle of the week. Usually I just kind of do them like based upon the game and the week that it went down. But there's so much to talk about with the Jaguars right now. You know, that like now we actually have reason to do more episodes and more content because there's so much good news to talk about. So this one's going to be a little unusual in that it's in the middle of the week. But there's some breaking news out of Duval County for the Jaguars, and that is Greg Newsome II from the Browns. We have acquired him in exchange for Tyson Campbell and a 6th-round pick, and we're getting Greg Newsome and a 7th-round pick back. Basically just a cornerback swap. The picks were kind of meaningless at that point because they're such late rounders. But James Gladstone continues to wheel and deal and continues to move this team around. My initial thoughts are cautiously optimistic, right? If you look online and all the media, and if you look at the numbers, raw numbers themselves, this is a massive win for the Jaguars because Greg Newsome has been more consistent this year in coverage. Tyson Campbell has been an excellent run defender, but he hasn't been that great in coverage. I think he's been scoring like a 51 or something like that. And so based upon that, the Jaguars decided, you know, Greg Newsome's not as good in run coverage, but what he makes up for in pass coverage is worth it because our run defense is already really good. So, and Greg Newsome, I think Tyson Campbell is like a 51 PFF grade in coverage. He's allowed several big plays this year. Can't deny that. He allowed a big one to Tyquan Thornton in this past game. He allowed that big one to Nico Collins. But he's also made some great plays this year. He had a key breakup against Tet McMillan in the first game. He forced that incompletion, that fumble on Nico Collins after giving up the big play the play before. So he's done some really good things, right? There are players like Devin Lloyd and Jordan Lewis on this defense that where all they do is great things. They haven't made any major mistakes. Like Tyson Campbell has made major mistakes, but he's done some good things. Devin Lloyd hasn't made any major mistakes. Jordan Lewis hasn't made any major mistakes. They've just been doing all the good things. So I think that's kind of what our defense is rounding into and transforming into. Like, yeah, I love that you've done good things for us, but we need consistency over that, which is going to kind of be a modicum of Trevor Lawrence because Trevor's done, even in the Chiefs game that he won, that I'm so proud of the way that, like, that was one of the first games that he won on his own skill. But we do some good things and then some bad mistakes is not going to fly for very much longer. So I think that's kind of a sign to the rest of the team that, like, you know, even if you kind of make up for those mistakes, the competition here, like if we're morphing into a contender, the competition of who gets to stay on the Jaguars, it's not just the guys that make up for their mistakes. It's the guys that just don't make mistakes, which is crazy to be talking about the Jaguars that way. So anyway, Greg Newsome has been very, very consistent. My only concern about this trade, like if you look at their numbers, Tyson Campbell is regularly treated as our cornerback 1. So he usually covers the main guy out there. So like in 2022, I think he was playing cornerback 2 and he was having a really good season. And then he became the number 1 guy. And we paid him like the cornerback 1. Even though he has given up a lot of plays. He's probably on the low end of the cornerback 1s, and he's probably a rock solid cornerback 2. Like if Tyson Campbell was a cornerback 2, he'd be great. And that's what I wanted us to do. I wanted us to give him an extension that was more reflective of a cornerback 2, not necessarily a cornerback 1. Greg Newsome is a cornerback 2 because he plays opposite Denzel Ward, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So Denzel Ward is covering all the top receivers, and usually Greg Newsome is on those second receivers, right? So because of that, it's kind of like if 2017, like if you looked at the raw numbers, AJ Boye had better numbers than Jalen Ramsey. He had more picks, more passes defense, and a better coverage grade. But no one thought that AJ Boye was better than Jalen Ramsey. AJ Boye was covering a lower class of receiver. And same thing but Jalen Ramsey was covering the top guys, the top dogs. So, of course, AJ Boye's numbers are going to look better because he's facing lesser competition. So Jalen Ramsey is still a better cornerback. And even still, Jalen Ramsey wasn't allowing big plays. I don't think he was making as many mistakes as Tyson Campbell, but that kind of gives you the context of why those numbers can look so different. Because again, a lot of time it's about who you line up against. That can make a huge difference in what plays you're giving up. And so my only concern is we traded for a guy with better numbers, but a guy who is covering lesser receivers. We don't really know how well Greg Newsome can. Like, is Greg Newsome going to be our cornerback one? Travis Hunter played great, but is he about to be our cornerback one? Is Jordan Lewis going to be the cornerback one going from there and into the slot? Is Darian Jones going to be the cornerback one? Like, who's the guy that's going to line up across their top receiver? And I know Tyson Campbell hadn't been perfect, and he's given up a lot, but he has a lot of experience in that regard. And I don't I don't know if Greg Newsome. Now again, the Jaguars could go a different route instead and use Greg Newsome to lock down their second tier cornerback and kind of do like a two-man on whatever team's top wide receiver is. So like when we play the Seahawks coming up with JSN, they could use Greg Newsome to lock up Bobo or someone else. Jordan Lewis is going to be on Cooper Cup, which I think he'll be fine in that matchup. And then they could use Travis Hunter doubling JSN with safety help. So the safety's job, like either Eric Murray or Andrew Wingard's job, one of them would be doubling JSN, and the other one would be providing and run support and covering the deep middle of the field in case the tight end leaks out. And that's a good way to suffocate any offense, right? People have used that strategy before, and it's worked out if you trust Greg Newsome can hold up in man coverage against a receiver, like in one on one. So that's the question. Again, it's like, is Greg Newsome going to ascend to that cornerback one level? Or because he's been playing alongside Denzel Ward, which can make you look better when you're going against lesser competition because the other guy is taking out the biggest competition. And again, Tyson Campbell is not perfect, but he has experience in covering the top guys in the league. We don't really know if Greg can do that. So that's why I say I'm cautiously optimistic, because I think Tyson Campbell, like the contract we gave him was too much. So I knew we needed to get rid of that, and trading him away is a great way to get rid of that because we won't incur any dead cap. So I'm okay with that because the contract was too much. I just, again, cautiously optimistic. I know Greg Newsome has been better this year, but I also know he's not facing the same kind of receivers that Tyson Campbell was facing. Tyson Campbell was going up against Jamar Chase. He also went up against T. Higgins, right? Um, Tyson Campbell has gone up against, who else has he played? Ricky Pearsall, and he kind of got violated by Ricky Pearsall. I'm not gonna lie, until Pearsall went out of the game. So, um, Tyson Campbell went up against him. He went against T Mac, who's a rookie, and T Mac still got the best of him a couple of times. So again, like I said, Tyson Campbell he's got kind of up and down play, but I always thought he was a cornerback too. I think he'll thrive on the Browns. Honestly, I think the Browns. I mean, I don't know. It depends on, is Greg Newsome. I think the Browns are experimenting that Tyson Campbell will be better as a cornerback two than he was as a cornerback one, and he may even be better than Greg Newsome was as a cornerback two. Um, but there's a lot of untapped potential with Greg Newsome, and based upon the way he plays, like depending on how Anthony Campanelli's scheme works, it might not be based upon the number one receiver. It might just be based upon zone looks and things like that. So if Anthony Campanelli is saying, yeah, this guy is I'm watching the tape and this guy's gonna understand my scheme. Like if his scheme is similar to Jim Schwartz and he thinks that Greg Newsome, if he can look at Greg Newsome's strengths and be like, yeah, I can use that, and he's gonna thrive in my scheme, I'll trust Anthony Campanelli, right? Like I'll trust what he's been able to do with his defense so far, and that Greg Newsome is his guy if he went to James Gladstone and was like, yeah, I want that guy. If you can make that happen, go bring me that guy. So I'm cautiously optimistic. A lot of people are saying we won, and I'm glad that people are excited that Greg Newsome's coming. And I really do hope that he shores up our defense, right? Because, it's funny because everyone thought that Eric Murray coming into our secondary was the weak spot in the Texans secondary. And he's been one of the strongest spots in our secondary. And our defense is ranked right up there with the Texans this year. So it's kind of crazy. And Andrew Wingard is having such a great year. I don't even know when Caleb Bransall would ever start because Andrew Wingard is holding it down so well. Like at this point, if he keeps playing this well, I mean, he loves Jacksonville, but he's going to price himself out if he keeps playing this well, and we're going to have to like. And I hope we don't trade him or anything like that, but it's going to be a tough choice. But anyway, moving on to the second news piece, Brenton Strange goes on IR. That one hits a lot harder because Brenton Strange is probably he was the engine that makes our offense go. He was such a sure-handed. He was a guy that he was so sure-handed that you could throw passes to him knowing he would catch them, convert those first downs. He was the security blanket, and he was that road grading run paver, blocking guys and just moving them out of the way. And again, what was great about him is he was a blocking and a catching tight end. So when he's on the field, you don't know if it's a pass play or a run play. And that confuses defenses. Having a top tight end like that, that's what allowed San Francisco to be so good with George Kittle because he can fake like he's going to block and then go out and catch a huge pass, or he can just block and pancake guys into the ground. And that's what Brenton Strange does. And that's why that skill set was so much more valuable than Evan Ingram's. Because Evan Ingram was a great tight end, but you knew he couldn't block really well. So whenever he was in the game, it was kind of like, oh, okay, probably going to be a pass play. But whenever someone else is in the game, like our run blocking tight end that we have for a long time, Chris Manhertz, it would be like, oh, they're probably going to pass, or they're probably going to run because they got the run blocking tight end in. So without Brenton Strange, it's a huge blow to our offense. Honestly, like it's not gonna say it's worse than losing like Hunter or Brian Thomas Jr. I won't really say that. It's definitely worse than losing Dynamic Brown or any of our running backs, honestly, because of what Brenton Strange does to confuse defensive coordinators about what he's going to do, and because he's so short-handed. So the question is, what do we do from here? He's going on injured reserve. It looks like it's not season ending, because he was out of the game for the last half of Kansas City, and even without him, we still were able to win throughout the last half of that game. But our rushing attack is going to suffer a little bit. I kind of wish this was happening towards the end of the year when we were in a soft part of our schedule, because we still got a couple of tough games coming up. We got the Seahawks, we got the Rams. Then I think we hit the bye week. So it's nice to have the bye week here. So like that's one less game that he'll be out for. I just wish we were going to have him for the Seahawks and the Rams games. It's like after that, and then if he got hurt in the Rams game, then okay, you can go on injured reserve. Because I think after that we have like the Titans and the Jets, and our schedule really softens up, and the Cardinals after the bye week. Um, but I think we can get to the bye week at least 5-2. I'm not. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna be okay with us losing to the Seahawks or the Rams, just because we've already proven so much and we don't want to regress. But if we can hit the bye week at 5-2, we'll feel good. We'll feel great, right? Um, I'm not sure if we'll beat the Rams. I am gonna pick us to beat the Seahawks this week. Um, and I'm wondering if, based upon the timing of this injury, I think if James Gladstone was going to bring in another tight end, he would have done it with this trade. Like he would have maybe brought in David Njoku, because the way the Browns rookie tight end is kind of showing out, and it's kind of like, well, do you need David Njoku? They're probably just gonna see what else that guy can do, Harold Fannin Jr. Um, there might be, I mean, there's some other guys out there that you could try to. I would call it the Steelers about Darnell Washington. Um, so, someone that can block and catch. But I think for the most part, I think James Gladstone is looking at it like, by the time we get back from the bye, he'll only have one game before he can come back. Not sure if that's worth giving up assets. If it was a trade for if you were giving up more than a fifth round pick, I would say no, don't do it. Um, Maybe even more than a sixth round pick, honestly. But again, if you were able to bring in someone like David Njoku or a tight end from another team that they don't really need if they have a lot, I would heavily consider it. Because maybe I don't know if I want to call it Miami about Darren Waller. That feels very odd. Um, But it could be worth a shot. But I mean, we've got the thing is like earlier this season, I even predicted when I said I think our tight end depth is a little shaky, right? Because we had Brenton Strange, and I was like, after that, Hunter Long and Johnny Mundt are nice pieces to have, but Brenton Strange is the guy. And so I thought like, hey, maybe we should trade and try to bring someone else in case Brenton Strange goes down. We ended up not doing it. Brenton Strange goes down. So I think if we lose the Seahawks game, maybe James Gladstone will consider something else. But I think for right now they're gonna roll with Hunter Long and Johnny Mundt, who've both shown that they can be reliable when called upon. They haven't dropped any passes, and they've been able to block. So I think he just feels confident in the guys that we have right now to take over for Brenton Strange. And again, it is temporary, right? So hopefully the Jaguars will still be able to get the win this week. We're at home against the Seahawks, so that helps out a lot. And yeah, even if we come back from London with the loss, we'll be 5-2 at the bye, where the schedule really opens up. And like at this point in the season, I mean, the Travis Hunter trade is a win, right? Can we all just? I said as long as the Jaguars make the playoffs, doesn't really matter how Travis Hunter plays. Like as long as he's not like a bust, which I didn't think he was going to be a bust, but it's like he doesn't have to. Like I was saying, I would rather us make the playoffs and him maybe not light up the league than him light up everything and us still not make the playoffs, right? Because again, that pick is going to be so much higher. Once you trade away your first round pick, your goal is to keep winning, so that way that pick goes lower and lower and lower and lower. And so in the Browns case, they made that trade thinking that like, oh yeah, this could be a top 10, top 15 pick. Most people were picking the Jags to get 7 wins in Liam Cohen's first year. And technically that could still happen, right? But it looks more and more like we're going to make the playoffs. And the deeper the playoff run, if we make it at least the divisional round, then the pick is going to be more like in the 24 spot. It's going to be like as soon as that pick gets into the 20s, we've won because it's such a late round, first round pick. And again, if this was the difference that helped you got into the playoffs, it's worth it. So I think all things are looking pretty good for that trade. Glad the Browns continue to go to the well and do deals with us. And they also just traded Joe Flacco to the Bengals, which is an interesting move. I think if I'm the Bengals, I don't know. Like I guess they're hoping that Joe Flacco will be better than Jake Browning, but Flacco has thrown more picks than Browning. And you could argue that the Bengals have better receivers, so Flacco might be better in that environment. But can you argue that the Bengals have a better offensive line? Because I don't think they do than the Browns. I think they're probably just about even. So that'll be an interesting move. Honestly, I think Tyson Campbell's going to thrive in his new home. I hope that Greg Newsome can thrive with us, but I do think the move was made because Anthony Campanelli's got a plan for him. And clearly, him, Tony Baselli, James Gladstone, and Liam Cohen are all working in unison in perfect harmony, and it's working out great. So those are the news items. Let me know your thoughts on the Greg Newsome trade. Do you think that we won? Do you think that was a good trade for us? Let me know your thoughts about Brenton Strange going on IR. Would you like to see James Gladstone make another move to maybe shore up that tight end position while we wait for him to get back? Are you more worried about these games coming up with him being on IR? Yeah, and thoughts about anything else throughout the league. Because I kind of wonder, like, would the Bengals have been better off going after Kirk Cousins? But if the Falcons were asking for like a 4th round or a 3rd round pick for him, then that's a non-starter. So, yeah, even comment on that. Should the Bengals have gone for Kirk Cousins or Joe Flacco? Lots of news to discuss in the NFL, but no matter what you come here to comment on, never forget, it was always the Jags. Thank you so much for watching Always the Jags. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. Check out some of these other videos that I'm sure you'll be interested in as we chase Duval greatness. Thank you for joining us again, and until next time.